I want to sort of shift gears here and go through some questions now that women might ask if they decide that adoption is the way to go, if that's the plan. A question here is, can I choose the family for my baby?
Definitely, yeah. For many years, that wasn't the case. But in recent years, birth parents have so many choices now. And the biggest choice is who's going to raise my baby. And they get to choose that.
How does that work?
Well, if I have a gal that's looking at her options, and she has decided that she wants to go down that adoption path, she feels like that's the best choice for her child, then we take a look at what kind of a family are you interested in?
Okay.
What kind of things are important to you? What do you value in a family? And then we also take a look at some of her history. Was there drugs and alcohol that were used during her pregnancy, and some things that might cause additional risks for the child? And so then once we kind of have an idea as to what type of family, we'll show her profiles of waiting families, and she looks through those profiles, and what I find is generally there's one that she really connects with, and we say, let's have you meet them. And
Wow.
So she gets together, she meets them, and if the birth father's involved, we involve him in that whole process, and they get together. Sometimes we meet here in this office, sometimes we'll meet at a restaurant. We've met at all different types of places. And we just, I help facilitate that, and everybody's a little nervous, of course, when they first meet, but they get to know each other. And if they decide, yep, this is what we want to do, then we move forward with that plan. And then we develop a hospital plan for how that will look at the hospital.
Okay.
Most of them share their hospital experience with
Really?
the adoptive couple.
Wow.
And it's a wonderful experience. It's a very
Wow.
emotional experience for
Yeah.
everybody, of course. But the birth mom will develop her plan so that the hospital knows, here's this patient coming in with a unique situation. It's not like all the other gals that are coming in and delivering. Her situation is unique. And so she comes into the hospital with a plan. And that plan may include that the adoptive mom might even be in there when she's giving birth. It may include the adoptive family is waiting outside the room, and as soon as she gives birth, then they come in and they get to see the baby. It could be a variety of different ways that she might want to have that first introduction of the adoptive parents with the baby. But generally there's a sharing of that experience.
Wow.
Our hospital here is wonderful about giving the adoptive couple a complimentary room. And so the birth mom's in one room and they might be in the next room. And most people are having open relationships now. And so they're spending that hospital time together, being with the baby. And then when it's time for discharge, then I facilitate that discharge. And of course, that's a very difficult time of her leaving the hospital without the baby.
I was going to ask, let me stop you there. How long does the mother typically nurture the baby before the adoptive family takes over?
Well, at the hospital, again, it goes back to that hospital plan, and we do a lot of work on that. When I'm meeting with the birth mom, we talk a lot about what do you think you're going to want in that hospital experience.
Okay.
Most of them, they just share that whole hospital experience. And so a lot of them, they'll sleep throughout the night and let the adoptive family have the baby overnight at the hospital. And then in the morning, the adoptive family will come in and they'll just spend most of their time together in the birth mom's room, and they're all visiting together and raising the baby together in her room. Then when it's time for her to be discharged from the hospital, then that is a time of her saying goodbye, but not permanently, because most of these gals are making open plans.
Okay.
And so they decide when they're going to get together again. Now,
Describe an open plan.
Open adoptions vary.
Okay.
From one adoption to another. They're amazing. We have some open adoptions where it basically means they're getting some pictures and updates, and they might see each other once or twice a year.
Right.
We have others where it is as casual and frequent as it might be a favorite aunt or sister. They might call each other up and get together a couple, 3 times a month.
What percentage of the time in your experience is that
Often.
happening?
It's more and more.
Okay.
And more. I started working at Bethany in 2003. I worked in the South Dakota and Wyoming office, and then transferred here a couple of years ago to Muskegon.
Yep.
And I am finding that the more I work in adoption, then as time goes along, more and more people are becoming comfortable with openness. They're seeing that it's a healthy way to raise a child, for that child to grow up knowing their birth parents and having a relationship with them.
It's interesting because if I'm adopting a child Is there insecurity on the part of the adopting family that the mother may want to be overly involved in maybe still even trying to raise the child? Seems like there's some really interesting dynamics that could come into play.
There's a lot of interesting dynamics. Most couples are a little apprehensive about it when they first make an application for adoption. But as they begin to go through that home study process, and Kristen Brookhouse is the counselor in our branch that does the licensing of the families, or does the home studies for the families. And she's really good about just giving them information about open adoption and educating them and helping them realize this is a really healthy alternative to the old way when adoptions were closed. So by the time they get to the point where they're actually chosen, they've done enough research on it, and they've probably met some other couples that are doing openness. They're beginning to see the benefits. And by the time you get done with the hospital experience, it's pretty amazing how most adoptive families wouldn't want it any other way.
Wow. This is so neat. Let's take a break here again, and we will be right back with you on Testify West Michigan.